Resilience. The ability of a system or network to recover quickly from failure events with no or minimal manual intervention. Resilience. Selection of effective controls. The process of choosing the type and placement of security controls to ensure the goals of the CIA triad and compliance with any framework requirements. Selection of effective controls. Defense in depth. Security strategy that positions the layers of diverse security control categories and functions as opposed to relying on perimeter controls. Defense in depth. Device placement. Considerations for positioning security controls to protect network zones and individual hosts to implement a defense in depth strategy and to meet overall security goals. Device placement. Passive security control. An enumeration, vulnerability, or incident detection scan that analyzes only intercepted network traffic rather than sending probes to a target. More generally, passive reconnaissance techniques are those that do not require direct interaction with the target. Passive security control. Active security control. Detective and preventive security controls that use an agent or network configuration to monitor hosts. This allows for more accurate credentialed scanning, but consumes some host resources and is detectable by threat actors. Active security control. Inline. Placement and configuration of a network security control so that it becomes part of the cable path. Inline. Sensor. A monitor that records or sniffs data from frames as they pass over network media using methods such as a mirror port or tap device. Sensor. A span, switch port analyzer, mirror port. Copying ingress and or egress communications from one or more switch ports to another port. This is used to monitor communications passing over the switch. Span, switch port analyzer or mirror port. Test access point. A hardware device inserted into a cable run to copy frames for analysis. Test access point. Fail open. A security control configuration that ensures continued access to the resource in the event of failure. Fail open. Fail closed. A security control configuration that blocks access to a resource in the event of failure. Fail closed. Packet filtering firewall. A layer 3 firewall technology that compares packet headers against ACLs to determine which network traffic to accept. Packet filtering firewall. Appliance firewall. A standalone hardware device that performs only the function of a firewall, which is embedded into the appliance's firmware. Appliance firewall. Router firewall. A hardware device that has the primary function of a router, but also has firewall functionality embedded into the router firmware. Router firewall. Stateful inspection. A technique used in firewalls to analyze packets down to the application layer rather than filtering packets only by header information, enabling the firewall to enforce tighter and more security. Stateful inspection. State table. Information about sessions between hosts that is gathered by a stateful firewall. State table. Layer 4 firewall. A stateful inspection firewall that can monitor TCP sessions and UDP traffic. Layer 4 firewall. Layer 7 firewall. A stateful inspection firewall that can filter traffic based on specific application protocol headers and data such as web or email data. Layer 7 firewall. Proxy server. A server that mediates the communications between a client and another server. It can filter and often modify communications as well as provide caching services to improve performance. Proxy server. Caching engines. A feature of many proxy servers that enables the servers to retain a copy of frequently requested web pages. Caching engines. Non-transparent proxy. A server that redirects requests and responses for clients configured with the proxy address and port. Non-transparent proxy. Transparent or forced or intercepting proxy. A server that redirects requests and responses without the client being explicitly configured to use it, also referred to as a forced or intercepting proxy. Transparent proxy. Reverse proxy. A type of proxy server that protects servers from direct contact with client requests. Reverse proxy. Intrusion detection system, IDS. A security appliance or software that analyzes data from a packet sniffer to identify traffic that violates policies or rules. Intrusion detection system, IDS. Snort. An open source NIDS, a subscription is required to obtain up-to-date roulette sets, which allow the detection engine to identify the very latest threats. Non-subscribers can obtain community-authorized rule sets. Intrusion prevention system. A security appliance or software that combines detection capabilities with functions that can actively block attacks. Intrusion prevention system. Next generation firewall. Advances in firewall technology from app awareness, user-based filtering, and intrusion prevention to cloud inspection. Next generation firewall. Unified Threat Management, UTM. All-in-one security appliances and agents that combine the functions of a firewall, malware scanner, intrusion detection, vulnerability scanner, data loss prevention, content filtering, and so on. Unified Threat Management. Load balancer. A type of switch router or software that distributes client requests between different resources, such as communication links or similarly configured servers. This provides fault tolerance and improves throughput. Loader balancer. Session affinity. A scheduling approach used by load balancers to route traffic to devices that have already established connections with the client in question. Session affinity. Persistence. In load balancing, the configuration option that enables a client to maintain a connection with a load balanced server or the duration of a session, also referred to as sticky sessions. Persistence. Web application firewall, WAF. A firewall designed specifically to protect software running on web servers and their back-end database from code injection and DOS attacks. Web application firewall. Remote access. Infrastructure, protocols, and software that allow a host to join a local network from a physical remote location, or that allow a session on a host to be established over a network. Remote access. Virtual private network. A secure tunnel created between two endpoints connected via an unsecured transport network, typically the internet. Virtual private network. Tunnel. The practice of encapsulating data from one protocol for safe transfer over another network, such as the internet. Tunnel. Point-to-point tunneling protocol, PPTP. Developed by Cisco and Microsoft to support VPNs over PPP and TCP. PPTP is highly vulnerable to password cracking attacks and considered obsolete. Point-to-point tunneling protocol. Transport layer security, TLS VPN. Virtual private network solution that uses digital certificates to identify and host and establish secure tunnels for network traffic. Transport layer security, VPN, TLS. Internet protocol security, IPsec. Network protocol suite used to secure data through authentication and encryption as the data travels across the network or the internet. Internet protocol security. Authentication header, AH. IPsec protocol that provides authentication for the origin of transmitted data as well as integrity and protection against replay attacks. Authentication header. Encapsulating security payload, ESP. IPsec subprotocol that enables encryption and authentication of the header and payload of a data packet. Encapsulating security payload. Internet Key Exchange, IKE. Framework for creating a security association used with IPsec. An SA establishes that two hosts trust one another, authenticate, and agree on secure protocols and cipher suites to use to exchange data. Internet Key Exchange. Remote Desktop Protocol, RDP. Application protocol for operating remote connections to a host using a graphical interface. The protocol sends screen data from the remote host to the client and transfers mouse and keyboard input from the client to the remote host. It uses TCP port 3389. Remote Desktop Protocol, RDP. Virtual Network Computing, VNC. Remote Access Tool and Protocol, VNC, is the basis of Mac OS screen sharing. Virtual Network Computing, VNC. HTML5 VPN. Using features of HTML5 to implement remote desktop VPN connections via browser software, clientless. HTML5 VPN. Secure Shell, SSH. Application protocol supporting secure tunneling and remote terminal emulation and file copy. SSH runs over TCP port 22. Secure Shell. Out of band, OOB. Accessing the administrative interface of a network appliance using a separate network from the usual data network. This could use a separate VLAN or a different kind of link, such as a dial-up modem. Out of band, OOB. Jump server. A hardened server that provides access to other hosts. Jump server. Cloud deployment model. Classifying the ownership and management of a cloud as public, private, community, or hybrid. Cloud deployment model. Public or multi-tenant. A cloud that is deployed for shared use by multiple independent tenants. Public or multi-tenant. Cloud Service Providers, CSP. Organization providing infrastructure, application and/or storage services via an as-a-service subscription-based, cloud-centric offering. Cloud Service Providers. Multi-cloud. A cloud deployment model where the cloud consumer uses multiple public cloud services. Multi-cloud. Private. A cloud that is deployed for use by a single entity. Private. Cloud computing. Computing architecture where on-demand resources provisioned with the attributes of high availability, scalability, and elasticity are billed to customers on the basis of metered utilization. Cloud computing. Community. The cloud that is deployed for shared use by cooperating tenants. Community. Hybrid cloud. A cloud deployment that uses both private and public elements. Hybrid cloud. Cloud service models. Classifying the provision of cloud services and the limit of the cloud service provider's responsibility as software, platform, infrastructure, and so on. Cloud service models. Anything as a service, XaaS. The concept that most types of IT requirements can be deployed as a cloud service model. Anything as a service, XaaS. Software as a service, SaaS. A cloud service model that provisions fully deployed application services to users. Software as a service. Platform as a service, PaaS. A cloud service model that provisions application and database services as a platform for development of apps. Platform as a service. Infrastructure as a service, IaaS. A cloud service model that provisions virtual machines and network infrastructure. Infrastructure as a service. Responsibility matrix. Identifies that responsibility for the implementation of security as applications, data, and workloads are transitioned into a cloud platform are shared between the customer and the cloud service provider. Responsibility matrix. Centralized computing architecture. A model where all data processing and storage is performed in a single location. Centralized computing architecture. Decentralized computing architecture. A model in which data processing and storage are distributed across multiple locations or devices. Decentralized computing architecture. Virtualization. A computing environment where multiple independent operating systems can be installed to a single hardware platform and run simultaneously. Virtualization. High availability, HA. A metric that defines how closely systems approach the goal of providing data availability 100% of the time while maintaining a high level of system performance. High availability. Replication. Automatically copying data between two processing systems either simultaneously on both systems, synchronous, or from a primary to a secondary location, asynchronous. Replication. Application virtualization. A software delivery model where the code runs on a server and is streamed to a client. Application virtualization. Containerization. An operating system virtualization deployment containing everything required to run a service, application, or microservice. Containerization. Serverless computing. Features and capabilities of a server without needing to perform server administration tasks. Serverless computing offloads infrastructure management to the cloud service provider. For example, configuring file storage capability without the requirement of first building and deploying a file server. Serverless computing. Virtual Private Cloud, VPC, a private network segment made available to a single cloud consumer on a public cloud. Virtual Private Cloud. Microservices, an independent single-function module with well-defined and lightweight interfaces and operations. Typically, this style of architecture allows for rapid, frequent, and reliable delivery of complex applications. Microservices. Infrastructure as Code, IAC. Provisioning architecture in which deployment of resources is performed by scripted automation and orchestration. Infrastructure as Code, IAC. Software-defined networking, SDN. APIs and compatible hardware virtual appliances allowing for programmable network appliances and systems. Software-defined networking. Network functions virtualization, NFV. Provisioning virtual network appliances such as switches, routers, and firewalls via VMs and containers. Network functions virtualization. Software-defined wide area network. Services that use software-defined mechanisms and routing policies to implement virtual tunnels and overlay networks over multiple types of transport network. Software-defined wide area network, SD-WAN. Secure Access Service Edge. A networking and security architecture that provides secure access to cloud applications and services while reducing complexity. It combines security services like firewalls, identity and access management, and secure web gateway with networking services such as SD-WAN. Secure Access Service Edge, SASE. Embedded systems. An electronic system that is designed to perform a specific dedicated function such as a microcontroller in a medical drip or components in a control system managing a water treatment plant. Embedded systems. Real-time operating systems, RTOS. A type of operating system that prioritizes deterministic execution of operations to ensure consistent response for time-critical tasks. Real-time operating systems. Industrial Control Systems, ICS. Network managing embedded devices. Computer systems that are designed to perform a specific dedicated function. Industrial Control Systems. Human-machine interfaces. Input and output controls on a PLC to allow a user to configure and monitor the system. Human-machine interfaces. Data historian. Software that aggregates and catalogs data from multiple sources within an industrial control system. Data historian. Supervisory control and data acquisition. A type of industrial control system that manages large-scale, multiple-site devices and equipment spread over geographically large areas from a host computer. Supervisory control and data acquisitions. Internet of Things, IoT. Devices that can report state and configuration data and be remotely managed over IP networks. Internet of Things. Zero Trust. A security design paradigm where any request, host to host or container to container, must be authenticated before being allowed. Zero Trust. Control plane. In zero trust architecture, functions that define policy and determine access decisions. Control plane. Assignment accounting. In asset management, processes that ensure each physical and data asset have an identified owner and are appropriately tagged and classified within an inventory. Assignment accounting. Monitoring asset tracking. Enumeration and inventory processes and software that ensure physical and data assets comply with configuration and performance baselines and have not been tampered with or suffered other unauthorized access. Monitoring asset tracking. Acquisition procurement. Policies and processes that ensure asset and service purchases and contracts are fully managed, secure, use authorized suppliers, vendors, and meet business goals. Acquisition procurement. Standard naming convention. Applying consistent names and labels to assets and digital resources, identities within a configuration management system. Standard naming convention. Configuration management. A process through which an organization's information systems components are kept in a controlled state that meets the organization's requirements, including those for security and compliance. Configuration management. Change control. The process by which the need for change is recorded and approved. Change control. Change management. The process through which changes to the configuration of information systems are implemented as part of the organization's overall configuration management efforts. Change management. Backups. A security copy of production data made to removable media, typically according to a regular schedule. Different backup types balance media capacity, time required to backup, and time required to restore. Backups. On-site backups. Backup that writes job data to media that is stored in the same physical location as the production system. On-site backups. Off-site backups. Backup that writes job data to the media that is stored in a separate physical location to the production system. Off-site backups. Recovery. The operation to recover system functionality and/or data integrity using backup media. Recovery. Snapshots. Used to create the entire architectural instance copy of an application, disk, or system. It is used in backup processes to restore the system or disk of a particular device at a specific time. A snapshot backup can also be referred to as an image backup. Snapshots. Journaling. A method used by file systems to record changes not yet made to the file system in an object called a journal. Journaling. Disposal, decommissioning. In asset management, the policies and procedures that govern the removal of devices and software from production networks and their subsequent disposal through sale, donation, or as waste. Disposal, decommissioning.